I went to get us champagne. The university's annual charity gala was the one night professors, faculty, and select students occupied the same room and pretended the distance between them didn't exist. Chandeliers, catered everything, department heads laughing with donors, and me, one of 3 scholarship students personally invited by the dean's office, standing beside my boyfriend, trying not to think about how 1 semester of this school cost more than my mother made in a year. Junho had squeezed my hand before I left for the bar. "Don't take long." I didn't. 3 minutes. That was all it took. I heard his laugh first. Low, private, tucked into the side corridor like he'd hidden it deliberately. Something about it snagged at me. I turned the corner. Junho, his hands wrapped around a woman's waist. Her lipstick already smeared against his mouth. She was a grad student I recognized from the science department. I stood there holding both glasses until the cold bit all the way through my fingers. He saw me, pulled back. "Dayeon, how long?" My voice didn't shake. I was surprised by that. "It's not what... How long, Junho?" He exhaled, straightened his jacket. "Lower your voice. There are faculty members everywhere." "How long? Does it matter?" "We're done," I said. That's when his face changed. The guilt evaporated and something colder, something calculated, moved in behind his eyes. "Done." He almost smiled. "Dayeon, look around this room. These are professors, researchers, people who actually built something. You're here because the dean had a soft moment." He stepped closer, dropping his voice. "You count change at the dining hall. You've been performing belonging this whole time and everyone sees it." I felt each word land separately, precisely, like he'd prepared them. "I stayed because I felt sorry for you," he said. "Honestly, you should be grateful." I turned to leave. I had no words for him. I was too hurt and embarrassed, but his voice echoed. "Check the campus forum." I stopped. His voice was calm, already done. I turned slowly and watched him slide his phone into his jacket pocket like he hadn't just said what he said. "What did you do?" "Something I should have done earlier. Consider it a farewell gift." I grabbed my own phone, opened the forum. The post was already at 47 views. The photo loaded and my legs stopped being reliable. It was one I had sent him privately. 4 months ago. A night I had felt safe. Seen. A moment I handed over willingly because I believed he was someone worth trusting. My face, my body, everything I kept hidden from the world. Right there on a public forum with a caption that made people in the ballroom start reaching for their phones. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. "Take it down." Barely a whisper. "Anonymous post," he shrugged. "Nothing to trace." "That is illegal." "Then sue me." He adjusted his cufflinks. "Good night, Dayeon." He walked back toward the ballroom, back toward the chandeliers and the faculty laughter like nothing had happened. I stood alone in that corridor watching the view count climb. 63, 71, 88. Professors who graded my papers. Students I sat beside every morning. The faculty members who had shaken my hand at orientation. All of them seeing me, not the version I carefully showed the world, the version I had only ever shown him. A woman from my seminar walked past the corridor entrance, phone in hand, and glanced up. Our eyes met. She looked back down immediately. I walked out. Not ran, walked. Because running would have given every single person in that room exactly what they wanted. The hotel bar attached to the venue didn't ask questions. I sat down. Something strong. The bartender poured. I drank before the glass fully landed. Again. My phone kept vibrating face down on the bar. I left it there. I could feel the notifications multiplying through the wood, each one another person seeing what he'd done. Another person who would look at me differently come Monday morning. I booked a room before my hands stopped cooperating. 7th floor. I just needed somewhere to disappear until I could breathe again. The corridor swayed slightly as I walked it. I squinted at the number on my key card, matched it to the door, or close enough, pushed it open. Warmth and light spilled out. 2 women looked up from across the room. They were composed in that specific quiet way that didn't come from effort. It simply lived in them. One sat with a glass of amber resting easy between her fingers. The other stood near the window, jacket folded over her arm, watching me with eyes that gave absolutely nothing away. The sitting one spoke first. "Are you the call girl we requested?" I should have said no. Wrong room. So sorry. But Junho's voice was still in my head. "You should be grateful." "Yes," I said. Neither of them reacted dramatically. The standing one set her jacket down. The sitting one tilted her head. "We're new in town." The standing one crossed to the bar cart and poured a third glass without being asked. "We want one real unhinged night. No complications, nothing that follows anyone home." She held the glass toward me. I crossed the room and took it. "You look like tonight already broke something," the sitting one said quietly. "It did." I held her gaze. "I don't want to talk about it." "Then we won't." I set my glass down. I walked to where she sat and stopped directly in front of her, close enough to watch something shift behind her eyes before she controlled it. I kissed her, slow, certain, like a decision made long before I walked through that door. When I pulled back, her breath had changed, just barely. Just enough. I turned so both women could hear me clearly. "I'm all yours tonight." The standing one went very still, and somewhere beneath the alcohol and the humiliation and the wreckage of everything I'd trusted and lost tonight, I meant every word. She kissed me back, harder than I expected. Her hand curved around the back of my neck and pulled me closer, and I stopped thinking about the gala, about the forum, about any of it, because her mouth was warm and certain, and she kissed me like a woman who knew exactly what she wanted and had already decided I was it. The second woman moved behind me. I felt her before I heard her, warmth pressing close, her lips finding the curve of my neck, slow and deliberate. Her hand started at my waist and moved upward, and I exhaled against the first woman's mouth like something inside me was finally being allowed to unclench. "Tell us what you need," the first one murmured against my lips. "Everything," I whispered. I need everything tonight." She pulled back just enough to look at me, really look. Then she reached for the zipper at the back of my dress and drew it down slowly. The fabric loosened and fell, and the cool air hit my skin, and I didn't flinch. I didn't want to hide. I wanted the opposite of hiding. The second woman turned me gently by the shoulder until I was facing her. She was looking at me the way people look at things they're deciding how to handle. Careful, intense, like I required her full attention. Then she reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, and the tenderness of it nearly undid me completely. "You're beautiful," she said quietly. I laughed. Short, broken. "You don't have to say that." "I know," she said. "I said it anyway." What came after was not rushed. It was the opposite of rushed. My every touch landed like a question my body answered before my mind could interfere. The sheets were cool against my back. Their hands were warm, impossibly warm, learning me without urgency, like they had already agreed they were in no hurry, and the night belonged entirely to us. I stopped existing as the girl from the forum. I stopped being the scholarship student who didn't belong. I became only sensation. Breath and heat and the press of skin and the soft sound of my own voice saying things I didn't plan. Then his name came out of my mouth. "Junho." I felt the room change before I opened my eyes. The first woman had gone still above me. The second one beside me had stopped completely. I pressed my hand over my mouth. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" "It's okay," the first one said softly. But she was already easing back, creating space, the warmth retreating. "No." I reached out and wrapped my fingers around her wrist. "Please don't stop." She looked at me. "I know what you heard." My voice was barely holding itself together. "I know how it sounds. But please, I need this. I need to not be myself tonight. Just tonight." My grip tightened. This might be the last night I ever feel alive. The silence lasted 3 full seconds. She looked across at the other woman, something passing between them that I couldn't read, a whole conversation in a single glance. Then she came back to me, and the night swallowed us whole. I don't have words for what it felt like to be held like that. Not with pity, not with ownership, but with intention. Like I was something worth handling carefully. Then every time I started to drift back to the corridor outside the ballroom, one of them would pull me back. A touch, a breath, a whispered word, anchoring me in that room, in that warmth, in a body that was mine again. I didn't say his name again. Morning came through the curtains like an accusation. I lay still for exactly 3 seconds, long enough to understand where I was and what was waiting for me outside this room. Then I moved. I found my dress on the floor, my shoes near the window, my phone, cracked screen, 43 notifications, battery at 6%. I didn't read a single one. I slipped out the door and into the empty corridor and didn't breathe properly until the elevator closed around me. No names exchanged, no goodbyes, just the hollow quiet of a morning I had to face alone. Monday hit like a wall. I dressed carefully, took the bus, walked through the campus gates with my chin level and my jaw tight, and told myself the stairs weren't as bad as they felt. They were worse. A group of students near the entrance went quiet as I passed. Someone angled their phone toward a friend. They both looked up at me at exactly the same time. A guy I'd worked with last semester found somewhere else to be the moment he saw me coming. A girl I didn't even know just lifted her finger and pointed like I was something to be identified. 416 views overnight. I kept walking. The classroom was half full when I pushed the door open. I saw him immediately. Junho. Sitting sideways in his chair, laughing at something on his phone, completely unbothered. Like Friday night was already ancient history. Like I was ancient history. My vision narrowed. I crossed the room in 8 steps. He looked up just as my hand connected with his face. Clean, hard, the sound of it cutting through every conversation in the room at once. Complete silence. Then a voice from the front of the classroom. Low, controlled, and dangerously calm. "We will not tolerate violence in this classroom, miss." I turned slowly, and every single drop of blood in my body ran cold. Both women from the hotel room stood at the front of the class. Composed, unreadable, in perfectly pressed faculty attire. The first one, the one I had kissed first, the one whose name I still didn't know, looked directly at me. Her expression gave nothing away, nothing at all. I have never wanted the floor to swallow me more than in that moment. "Sit down, miss." I sat, fast. Like my knees made the decision before my brain did. I found the nearest empty seat, not my usual one, just the closest available surface. And I put my head down and stared at my notebook, like it contained the answers to everything wrong with my life. The room resettled around me. Whispers smoothed back into silence. I felt Junho's eyes on the side of my face, and I refused to give him the satisfaction of turning. "As we were saying." Her voice. Professor Saran, that was the name she wrote on the board in clean, unhurried strokes. I recognized it before I recognized anything else about her. That voice, low, controlled. The kind of voice that didn't need volume because the whole room bent toward it automatically. She stood at the front like she'd been teaching here for years, like this was her air and we were simply breathing it by permission. Beside her, Professor Ryan finished writing her own name and turned to face the class. She was watching everyone and no one simultaneously. That particular stillness she carried like a second skin. Neither of them looked at me. I told myself that was a good thing. "This course will be taught jointly," Professor Saran continued. "Our expectations are identical, our standards are not negotiable, and our tolerance for disruption," a pause that lasted exactly long enough to mean something, "is non-existent." I sank lower in my seat. The lecture began. Something about corporate ethics and institutional responsibility. I had the notes open, I had the pen in my hand. I was doing everything a functioning student was supposed to do, except I couldn't hear a word. Because Professor Ryan shifted her weight and pushed her sleeve up slightly as she wrote on the board, and something about that small motion, the line of her wrist, the way she moved, pulled me straight back to that hotel room, to warmth, to hands that knew exactly where they were going. I pressed my pen harder into the paper. Professor Saran turned to address the left side of the room, and her eyes swept past me without stopping, and I felt it anyway. Felt the almost of it. The way my skin registered her gaze like temperature. Stop it, I told myself. I lasted approximately 4 minutes before I drifted again. This was a problem, a serious academic, career-affecting problem. These women were my professors. They thought I was a call girl. They had seen me slap a fellow student on my first Monday in their classroom. And my body, my completely unreasonable, sleep-deprived, still not recovered body, had chosen this moment to replay Friday night in full sensory detail on a loop. The bell rang and I startled. Students gathered their things. I moved fast. Bag, notebook, pen, exit. I was almost at the door. "Miss," Professor Saran's voice, not loud. It didn't need to be. I turned. "Our office," she said simply. "Now." Their shared office smelled like coffee and old books, and something I couldn't name, clean, serious. The kind of room that made you sit up straighter just by existing. They sat across from me. Both of them, side by side like a panel assembled specifically to dismantle me. Nobody spoke first. Then Professor Ryan tilted her head slightly. "We want to understand what happened in that classroom today." I cleared my throat. I lost my temper. It won't happen again. "We're also interested," Professor Saran said, "in what happened Friday evening." The air left the room. "We requested a service," she continued, her expression unchanged. "A professional service by a call girl. You represented yourself accordingly." "I wasn't—" I stopped, laughed. A short, nervous, entirely undignified sound. "I'm not a call girl. I got the wrong room. I was drunk. My boyfriend had just—" I pressed my lips together. "My ex-boyfriend posted a private photo of me on the campus forum and I was trying to disappear for the night and I pushed the wrong door open and you asked if I was—" I exhaled. "And I just said yes. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry." Silence. Professor Ryan looked at Professor Saran. Something moved between them. "And the student you assaulted this morning," Professor Saran said. "That was the same individual?" "He's the one who posted the photo." Another silence. Different texture this time. "Regardless," Professor Saran said, "striking a fellow student is a violation of the university's conduct policy. We're obligated to report this to the school board." She folded her hands on the desk. "The consequences will be determined from there. Likely suspension, possibly academic probation given your scholarship status." Scholarship status. Those two words landed like a door slamming. Suspension meant losing funding. Losing funding meant losing everything. Losing everything meant going back to a version of my life I had clawed my way out of with 4 years of near-perfect grades and zero safety net. I sat with that for exactly 3 seconds. Then something shifted. I don't know where it came from. Maybe the sleepless night. Maybe 416 views. Maybe the memory of Junho's voice telling me I should be grateful. Maybe the way my body had been humming at a frequency I couldn't switch off since I walked into that lecture hall. I stood up, I crossed to their desk. I sat on the edge of it, directly in front of them, legs crossed, hands resting easy beside me. Both women stared. "Punish me here instead," I said softly. My fingers found the first button of my shirt. Professor Ryan's breath shifted audibly. Professor Saran's eyes dropped to my hands, just for a second, before returning to my face. "Miss." "You already know what I look like," I said quietly. "This isn't new information." Professor Saran locked the door. That single click said everything her words hadn't. She stood there for a moment with her back to me. Then she turned around and looked at me sitting on her desk, really looked, and whatever wall she'd been holding up all through that lecture came down all at once. She crossed the room and kissed me, no warning, no hesitation. Both hands on my face like she'd already made the decision somewhere between the lecture hall and this office, and had simply been waiting to act on it. I grabbed her collar. She made a sound low in her throat and pulled me closer. Professor Ryan came around from behind her desk slowly. Her presence settled at my side, warm, deliberate. Her lips found my neck. Her hand pressed flat against my back, drawing me in, and I leaned into it and stopped thinking about everything waiting for me outside that door. "I watched you walk into that classroom this morning," Ryan murmured against my skin, "and I almost sent myself home." "Why didn't you?" I breathed. I needed to control myself. Saran pulled back slightly and looked at me, something open and unguarded moving across her face that I suspected very few people ever got to see. Then 3 sharp knocks landed on the door. We broke apart. Saran stepped back, smoothing her jacket. Ryan was behind her desk before I fully registered she'd moved. I slid off the desk, found 2 undone buttons with fingers that wouldn't cooperate, and dropped into the chair across from them with my knees pressed together. "One moment." Saran's voice was flawless. Nothing in it. The door opened. 2 campus security officers, both looking directly at me. "Miss Dayeon." Not a question. "We've received a formal complaint regarding the incident in classroom B7 this morning. The conduct panel requires your presence." I turned and looked at both professors. Saran's eyes were on her desk. Ryan had turned toward the window. Neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. I stood up and followed the officers out. The conduct panel room was cold in the specific way that had nothing to do with temperature. 3 panel members behind a long table, a recorder in the corner, a single chair positioned across from them, close enough to feel like a spotlight. I sat down. The woman at the center opened a folder without looking up. "Miss Dayeon, you physically assaulted a fellow student in a shared classroom this morning, in front of witnesses and faculty." "He posted a private photo of me on the campus forum," I said. "Friday night, during the faculty gala." She looked up slowly. "That is a separate matter." "It isn't separate. That's why I was in that classroom. That's why—" "Do you have evidence connecting this student to that post?" I stopped. "The post was anonymous," she continued, "filed under a guest account. There is no verified identity attached to it. I know who posted it." "Knowing and proving are 2 different things, Miss Dayeon. He told me himself. He said it to my face in that corridor." "Were there witnesses to that conversation?" My jaw tightened. "No." "So what you're presenting is an unverified accusation against a student who has filed a formal complaint with documented witnesses." She set her pen down. "Do you understand how this looks from where we're sitting?" I understood exactly how it looked. That was the point. That had always been the point. He'd constructed it that way. Anonymous post, no witnesses, clean hands. And I had walked straight into it. "He destroyed my reputation in front of this entire university," I said. My voice stayed level, but only just. "Faculty members saw it. Professors saw it. Students I have never spoken to sent me messages about it. And you're telling me because he used a guest account none of that is actionable?" "We can only act on what is substantiated. And a video of me slapping him is substantiated." "Yes." The panel member on the left leaned forward. "Your scholarship terms include a conduct clause. Any disciplinary action automatically triggers a funding review." There it was. "So I lose my scholarship." "It will be frozen pending the outcome of the review." The center woman closed the folder. "Effective immediately, you are suspended. Reinstatement is at the board's discretion. Documentation will reach you within 24 hours." She folded her hands. "You're dismissed." I made it to the hallway. My back found the wall. I slid down slowly until the floor caught me, knees pulled up, eyes burning. Before years of everything I had sacrificed to be in this building turning to something I couldn't name. I pressed my knuckles hard against my mouth. Then I saw him. Junho, across the corridor, leaning against the opposite wall with his phone out, relaxed, smiling at his screen like it was an ordinary Monday. Like he hadn't just engineered the most efficient dismantling of someone else's life he could manage. I was on my feet before I chose to stand. I started walking toward him, fast, my hands shaking, my vision narrowing to just his face and that easy, unbothered smile. A hand closed hard around my wrist, then another at my waist. I was pulled sideways, fast, clean, dragged off the main corridor into a narrow passage before I could react. The light disappeared. The hallway noise cut off. A door closed behind us, and everything went quiet. I spun around. Both professors stood in front of me in the dark. No explanation, no warning. Professor Ryans pulled me in and kissed me. Not like the office, not restrained or careful. Like something that had been under pressure all day and had finally found the release valve. Professor Saran's hands curved around my face from the side. Steady, warm, keeping me from flying apart entirely. When Ryan finally pulled back, her forehead came to rest against mine. The dark held all three of us. Her voice came out barely above a breath. "Say the word," she whispered, "and we will avenge you." The silence that followed had weight. And underneath the suspension and the humiliation and the wreckage of everything Friday night had started, something in me that had been terrified all day went completely still. The end. She thought one night would fix everything. Instead, it started something she can't undo. 2 professors, 1 secret, and a war nobody saw coming. If this story already has you hooked, hit that like button and subscribe right now so you don't miss part 2. Because what happens next? Nobody is ready for it.